Hello everyone, I am Dr. Vishal and I have an experience of over a decade in the logistics and supply chain management domain. My experience lies in industry and in academia. And what drives me to make this video is lack of knowledge available on the internet, especially in very simple language and easy to be understood by the students. Now let me directly get into this video and explain what are supply chains and what is supply chain management. Now this entire video will be in very simple language to explain the very basics of supply chain and supply chain management. Have you ever wondered how the products you use every day, from the food you eat to the gadgets you see, makes their way to you? Behind the scenes, there is a complex network that ensures these items are available when and where you need them. The network is called the supply chain. In simple terms, supply chain management is the process of managing the flow of goods and services from raw material to the final product reaching the customer. It involves everything from sourcing, production, and distribution to the delivery of the product to the end customer and consumer. Whether it's a smartphone, a t shirt, or even your morning coffee, a supply chain exists to make sure these products reach you efficiently and at the right price. But the success of any business depends heavily on how well they manage their supply chain. In this video lecture, we will explore the key element of supply chain management, its importance, and how it directly impacts businesses and customers. We will also cover the decision making phases that guide supply chain operations and look at ways companies can improve their efficiency. So, what is a supply chain? A supply chain is the process that moves a product from the raw materials to the customer. For example, when you buy a t shirt, the supply chain starts with cotton farmers growing the cotton. The cotton is then sent to a factory where it is made into fabric. What happens next? The fabric is sewn into a t shirt in a different factory. Once the t shirt is ready, it is packed and shipped to a store. The store sells it to customers. Throughout this process, various companies worked together to get the product from one stage to the next. Each step in the supply chain depends on one before it, and any delay at one point can affect the entire supply chain. For instance, if there is a shortage of cotton, it can delay the production of t shirts. Effective supply chains make sure goods are produced efficiently and arrive on time, helping businesses and customers. Now, this is one example with which I tried my best to explain what exactly is a supply chain. Now, as I said, the supply chain starts from the moment the raw material is grown somewhere. So, for example, in case of t shirts manufacturing, the raw material is cotton. So, it is grown by the farmers, right? So the supply chain starts the moment when the raw material is grown by the farmers, right? Once the cotton is ready, the farmers will deliver the cotton to a middleman. Through a middleman, it will be delivered to a manufacturer. Now first manufacturer will clean the cotton, will make it, will convert it into a thread, and probably the thread will be sold to another manufacturer who will convert this entire thread into a fully manufactured t-shirt. Now this t-shirt will be sent to a local warehouse. Now from the warehouse to the traders, then to the retailers, and then to the end customer to be used. Right. So as the definition says, supply chain is a movement of products from raw material suppliers to manufacturers to distributors to retailers and wholesalers to end customers. So as the name suggests, it is a chain. So it is a chain of events. It is a chain of stages. right? So the stages will start from the raw material. So here I threw one example of t-shirt manufacturing. So the supply chain starts the moment raw material is ready with the farmers, which is cotton. Now after harvesting, the cotton is sent through suppliers to the manufacturers, right? And then manufacturers will manufacture, and from there it is through distributors will be sold to the retailers and then to the end customer. So nowadays we have this concept called e-commerce. So you can buy through the retailers in an offline buy or through an online buy from the e-commerce, right? Point number two, a supply chain is a set of core and supporting activities required to convert raw materials or component parts through to finished products or services and making them available to the end customer. So another definition of supply chain is converting raw material into a finished product. So you can also say that supply chain is all about converting the raw material into a finished product. Now raw material again here is cotton and the finished product is a t-shirt. Point number three. Now what is supply chain management? Right. So far we studied what is supply chain. Now we want to see what exactly is supply chain management. So supply chain management, I would say, is the process of overseeing and optimizing the entire flow of goods and services. Right. Now, supply chain is the flow of goods and services. Correct. Now, optimizing and overseeing the flow of goods is called as supply chain management. So the word management is all about managing something. Right. Now, word management is all about overseeing and optimizing something, supervising something. Correct. Now here we are overseeing, optimizing and supervising the supply chain. That is why it is called as supply chain management. We are trying to manage the supply chain. So nothing should go wrong. Right. So that's what we are trying to do in the supply chain management. We are trying to control the flow of different activities which I just explained. Right from the raw material production to the final product being delivered to the end customer. So this entire chain need to be managed properly. That is why we call it supply chain management. Now it involves coordinating activities like, sourcing material, manufacturing products, managing the inventory and delivering the goods to stores or to the end customer. Supply chain management, which is also often it is called as SCM, it aims to make the supply chain efficient, cost effective, responsive to customer needs. Right. For an example, a company might use supply chain management to reduce wastes, cut cost, improve delivery times. It also involves managing relationships with suppliers, manufacturers, and distributors. The goal is to ensure products are available when and where they are needed without overstocking or understocking. Effective supply chain management can lead to a higher profits and better customer satisfaction. So, over here in the down part of this slide you can see a pictorial view of a supply chain management. So you see from the leftmost part, it is written raw material. So in the leftmost part is the first point when actually the supply chain starts. So it starts from procuring the raw material from the farmers. So suppose in case of t-shirts, the raw material is cotton. So we are trying to procure the raw material from the farmers. So the supply chain starts from the moment we procure the raw material from the supplier or from the farmer. Now it is delivered, the raw material is delivered to the manufacturer, and you can see two stages in between. One is inbound logistics and other one is goods in the warehouse. Okay, so inbound logistics is what? So inbound logistics is storage and transportation of raw material when it is moved from the supplier to the manufacturer or maybe farmer to the manufacturer. So try to imagine this is this stage of the supply chain wherein there is one farmer and there is a manufacturer. Now when you try to transport raw material from the farmer to the manufacturer, now whatever happens in between the storage and the transportation, we call it inbound logistics. Now think from the perspective of a manufacturer, something which is coming to you from the farmer as a raw material, it will called as inbound because it is coming to you as a manufacturer. So something is coming in, we call it inbound logistics. Similarly, at your end, since you are a manufacturer, the manufacturing will happen, right? So you are trying to convert the cotton into, the final product, which is a shirt. Okay. Now, once the shirt is manufactured at your premises, you will send it to the consumer through various modes of various means and modes, right? So there are wholesalers in between you and customer or you and consumer, right? So there are wholesalers, traders, retailers, and nowadays we have got e-commerce stakeholders as well, right? So people who are into e-commerce, right? Amazon, Flipkart, Myntra, Nike, Nika, and so on, these e-commerce platforms. And then there are delivering companies associated nowadays, right? So e-cart, delivery, DHL, Blue Dart, and so on. Right. So all these are stakeholders. Now, between you and the consumer, all these stakeholders exist. They all have their chunk of profits. They all have some role to play in this entire leg. Right. So you are a manufacturer, and there is consumer consuming your product. Now, your product will reach the consumer through outbound logistics. Right. Now, outbound logistics is what? So you as a manufacturer, something is going out from your premises, right? So obviously, in your case, in a manufacturer's case, it is the finished product that goes out of the premises of the manufacturer. So this will be called as outbound logistics. Now, in between, it has to be stored somewhere, right? It has to be transported through multiple modes of transport. If it is exported, or if it is transported to a distant located place, if the market is very far, right? So uh, this is called as outbound logistics, right? Now, this is what supply chain is, and this is what supply chain management is. Okay, now here in this slide, uh, we are continuing the supply chain management part, the very basics. Now here, the slides explain about different stakeholders, different actors in the supply chain. Now I have got the major actors. There can be multiple actors after this, right? Beyond whatever I have mentioned, there can be multiple actors, but these are the major ones. These are the very traditional actors. Now, as I said, modern actors are, e-commerce companies. They are the modern actors. You go 20 years, uh, uh, let's suppose the era of 2000, 2001, 2003. There was no e-commerce in India, right? Now, the actors which are there in front of you are the traditional actors. Now, first one is supplier, right? Now, supplier, or also called as vendor, are supply chain management terms. The terms means entities that provide raw material or semi-finished products to the manufacturing or processing corporations. Now, you see, a supplier is the one who provides raw material or semi-finished product to the manufacturers. That's it. This is what it means, right? Now, the supplier, or also called as vendor, okay, so they can be farmers, or they can be middlemen, right? So you might have seen, suppose Kisan Tomato Ketchup. So this company, Kisan Tomato Ketchup. Now, who are the suppliers for them? Farmers. Now the farmers are supplying tomatoes, fresh tomatoes. Okay, but sometimes, such companies, tomato ketchup companies, what do they do? If they do not have direct contact with the farmers, they get in touch with the middlemen. Now the role of middlemen between farmer and the manufacturer is to buy product from the farmers and sell it to the middleman, sorry, sell it to the manufacturer, having their own profit, certainly, right? So suppliers or vendors can be farmers for a manufacturer, or can be middlemen who are buying from the farmers and further selling it to the manufacturers, right? So these are the suppliers of raw material or semi-finished products. Now, manufacturing or manufacturers are those who are manufacturing the final product, right? Sometimes they are also the original equipment manufacturers, OEMs, right? So for example, Maruti company, right? So Maruti is a car manufacturer, it's an automobile manufacturer, but when it comes to tire, they do not manufacture tire. Now in that case, they get in touch with Yokohama Tire, MRF, Michelin, and so on. Right. Now these companies, Yokohama, MRF, Michelin, what are they? They are the OEMs. Now they are manufacturing the semi-finished product, right? And then they are delivering the semi-finished product to the Maruti, as an Maruti, who's an automobile manufacturer. Now Maruti is using these tires in their vehicles, right? So the manufacturers can be the final product manufacturers, the products which are ready to be used by the customer, or they can be OEMs. Now you cannot simply buy the tire and use it for some XYZ purpose. There's no use of tire until unless you don't have a car, right? Now that is why we call tire as a semi-finished product, because it is to be installed in a car, right? So those are the manufacturers. Distributors, we know very well, it's a very layman term. It is often used in day to day conversations. So distributors, uh, distribution management is a part of supply chain process that ultimately delivers goods to the end customers or consumers. It involves several aspects such as packaging, routing, warehouse storage, and fleet management. So distributors are more like wholesalers, or as the word suggests, distributor is the one who actually distribute the goods to the wholesaler or maybe to the retailer, right? So if we go with the word distributor, so it means the role of a distributor is just to distribute. But nowadays, as the role of each stakeholder has expanded, right? So you do not restrict yourself or confine yourself to just distribution. So distributors are also storing, they also have storage capacity nowadays, so they are storing the products for a longer period of time, right? Then comes wholesaler. So of course we know very well who exactly wholesalers are. So wholesalers are the one who have got a lot of inventory of certain products with them. So as and when it is required by the retailers, so the role of wholesaler is to distribute the products and make those products available to the retailers, right? Retailers are the your local shopkeepers, retail shops, right? Retail stores, right? From where you can go and you can buy. So as an individual buy, you can approach the retailer. But if you want to buy in bulk, you can even directly approach a wholesaler or a distributor. Right. For example, you want 3,000 packets of Maggi noodles. Right. So in that case, probably the retailer will not be able to make it available to you. Maybe the retailer is not having that much of inventory. Right. So in that case, you can approach wholesaler or distributor directly. Now, in that case, if you want to buy in bulk, the wholesaler or a distributor will offer you some discounts as well. So it's better if you want to buy in bulk, you approach wholesaler or retailer. Sorry, wholesaler or distributor. And then the customer. So the customer is the one who buy product from the retailers. Okay. As I said, nowadays we have this concept called e-commerce. So if you don't want to buy from the retailer, if you don't want to have an offline buy, you can go for online buy as well. So buying from online is also called e-commerce, electronic commerce, right? So these are the traditional stakeholders in a supply chain. Okay. So on this slide, you can see stepwise supply chain process with actors. So you can see, as I said, a supply chain starts from from supplying of raw material. So where exactly the raw material is available, right? So let me take one more example of steel. So in case of steel manufacturing, we need iron ore as a major component of raw material. So from where are we buying the raw material? Where exactly is the supplier located? So South Africa or maybe Brazil? So yes, Brazil. So Brazil is one of the largest exporter of iron ore. So we have to find a relevant supplier in Brazil, right? So the supply chain will start the moment we select a supplier who is somewhere in Brazil, right? And the supplier will understand what we need, how much quantity, what quality we need of iron ore, what are our expectations, and we will negotiate on price, right? So the supply chain starts the moment we look for a supplier, we finalize a supplier, we agree on some terms and conditions, right? And the supplier will start supplying the raw material. Now, in the modern terms, let me explain. In the modern terms, it is also said that the supply chain starts the moment we start designing a product. Okay, for example, in digital supply chains, when we think of iPhone, let's suppose iPhone 16, 18, 19, whatever uh, model we have in future. So they say, the experts say the supply chain starts the moment we start thinking of a new model of iPhone, right? So the moment, a set of experts will sit together and they will start thinking what kind of new features we have to add in into a new model of iPhone. So the moment they start thinking of that new model, the supply chain starts that moment. Now they will decide that, okay, till iPhone 16, these are the features we have installed in the model. Now in iPhone 17, what new features we need to add? Right. So the supply chain will start from that moment. Then they will prepare a blueprint, and the blueprint will be sent to the various, component manufacturers. Okay. So anyway, you know, uh, different experts, different views on supply chains, but majorly the supply chain starts the moment we get in touch with a supplier and we get into a deal that this is what we want. Dear supplier, this is what we want. So supplier of raw material, okay, so we are expecting some raw material as a manufacturer, right? And then the raw material through inbound logistics, it is sent to the manufacturer. Okay, so supplier will sell the raw material, will transport the raw material to the manufacturer, and this setup is called as inbound logistics because it is coming in. When you are a manufacturer, it is coming in, right? And you will manufacture the product and it will go out to the distributor or to the wholesaler. So when something is going out from your premises, you as a manufacturer, something is going out, it will be called as outbound logistics. Okay, the final product will reach the distributor, right? So you as a manufacturer is in touch with multiple distributors. Okay, now let me take another example. So suppose you are a pharmaceutical company. Okay, now your factory is somewhere in Himachal Pradesh or Uttarakhand or in the Sikkim state of India, right? Now you manufacture uh, some pharmaceutical products. Now for each region in India, you have different distributors. Now there are 2 to 3 distributors for Eastern India, 2 to 3 distributors for the North India, 2 to 3 distributors for the West, and same number of distributors to the South. And then again 3 to 4 distributors for Central India. Now this way you have got 20 to 25 distributor who are actually responsible for distributing your product. So once you have manufactured, then their role will start. So you will transport your products, pharmaceutical products, to the distributor. They will store in their warehouses and then in these 4 or 5 zones, right? And then they will, from their warehouses, they will distribute your products to the wholesalers. Now suppose in North India you've got 8 to 10 wholesalers or maybe more number of wholesalers, right? And similarly for each zone in India, you have got certain number of wholesalers. Now the role of wholesaler would be to provide your product, make it available to the retailer in each and every part of the country, right? So this could be through retailer, or this could be nowadays through, you know um, e-commerce again, right? The overall idea of a supply chain is to make product available to the end customer. Now whether the end customer is in Delhi, whether the end customer is in Mumbai, or whether the end customer is in Ladakh, it has to be the entire objective of a supply chain is to make the product available to the end customer, no matter where exact no matter where the customer is, right? And here is the end customer who is buying either from the retailer or maybe through the e-commerce platform. Right. Now here I have got an example of cocoa supply chain. Right. So cocoa is a raw material through which coffee is produced. Right. Now, another example you can see cocoa supply chain. So, cocoa is one of the most known place for growing cocoa is West Africa. Now, there are some certain countries like Ghana, Liberia, or Ivory Coast. These are the countries where cocoa is grown. Right. So, cocoa is grown, and once it is grown, once it is ready to be harvested, it is harvested from the farms. Right. Okay, and then it is bought by many uh, coffee companies, coffee manufacturers, right? So the procurement part happens, correct? Now, through some mode of transport, it is sent to the factories where the bean is separated from the fruit, right? And then it is fermented. So from bean separation, then the next stage is fermentation, right? Now, after fermentation, it is dried up. The bean is dried up, right? And then the grading happens, okay? And then it is packed, and then it is shipped to within the country and exported to other countries. Now, this is the entire chain of events. We can call it supply chain of cocoa, right? Similarly, supply chain of each product is different. There is a general structure of a supply chain, right? So as I said, first and foremost, something is bought, some raw material is bought from the supplier or from a vendor, right? So this supplier or vendor could be a farmer or could be a middleman, right? That depends what kind of a supply chain do we have, right? So there is a general structure of a supply chain, but then depending on each product, the supply chain differs. Okay, and then similarly, I have another example for you, which is of iPhone. Okay, now you can see over here the sourcing of raw material or sourcing of components happens from different countries. Okay, China is famous for manufacturing body. Okay, South Asian countries are, for example, Vietnam is famous for manufacturing of batteries. Right. Um Similarly, United States is famous for camera manufacturing. Right, or Japan is famous for camera manufacturing. Right, certain products are similarly bought from Europe. Okay, and then the assembly happens in China. So over here you can see assembly in China. So uh, all these products, all these components are bought from different countries and then they are assembled in China. So you might have seen on Apple iPhone that it is designed in California, US, and it is assembled in China. Right. And then once the iPhone model is assembled in China, now the model is ready to be used. It is either stored uh, nearby the factories. Once it is stored nearby the factories, and through various cargo services, through various freight transport services, for example, UPS and FedEx, it is made available in the different parts of the world. Right. So the buyers can buy from online stores, retail stores, direct sale force, or maybe through wholesalers, retailers, and other network carriers. So again, this is a supply chain of iPhone. So you can see how different it is from Coco supply chain. Right. So similarly, as I said, general structure remains same, but you know uh, the examples general structure remains same, but then there are different examples of supply chain. So for iPhone it is different, right? For cocoa it is different. For a t-shirt it is different. For juice the supply chain will differ. For other electronic components supply chain will differ. Right, again one more example to make it very easy for you to understand. This is a supply chain of paper industry. Right. So paper, we all know that they are produced after cutting trees, processing the pulp from the trees, processing the wood from trees, and then the final paper, arrives at our doorstep. Right. So this is we know broadly, but we also know that supply chain, the one method of paper manufacturing is you cut down the trees, you extract the wood of those trees, which is helpful in manufacturing the paper. And there is another method which is recycled paper the manufacturing of fresh paper through recycled paper, right? So one, we can provide fresh trees for manufacturing of paper, right? And second, we can also recycle. So with these two, we can manufacture the paper. So trees, the wood of trees sent to the factory for processing. Then recycled paper is also sent to the factory for processing, right? Now in the factory, the manufacturing will happen, and then the packaging will happen. So the once the manufacturing of paper is done, it will be packed, it will be transported to the distributor, to the wholesaler, then to the retailer, and then to the customer, right? Now in some cases, right, for example, if a company needs paper, now this is the supply chain you can see for an individual. So customer is an individual over here, right? But if a company needs paper in bulk, so then there it will be B2B buying, so business to business, right? So a company manufacturing paper, but then in the same time a company needs paper in bulk, right? So then it will be business to business. So two companies will get in touch for some business, right, to buy paper. Now this company will sell paper to this company, right? So these companies are plastic companies, product label manufacturers and ink suppliers. So they also need paper in bulk. There are companies who are into this business, so they need paper in bulk. Now in this case, they will buy paper from the paper manufacturer. Okay, so let me continue. So customer is an integral part of the supply chain. All the stages in a supply chain, directly or indirectly, involved in fulfilling customer requests. So supply chain exists because there is a customer. So there is a customer. That is why there is a supply chain. If there is no customer, there will be no supply chain, right? Because there is somebody who wants to buy paper. That is why supply chain of paper exists. If there is no buyer, the supply chain will not get into the picture. Supply chain includes raw material suppliers, transporters, manufacturers, warehouses, retailers, wholesalers, traders, and end customers. Within each company, the supply chain includes all functions such as product design and development, marketing, operations, distribution, finance, customer services. So, especially uh, departments like marketing, finance, customer service, they are not the core parts of the supply chain management, rather, they are the support activities. So, then there are certain core activities like suppliers or supplier management, procurement and purchasing management, manufacturing, distribution, wholesaler management, retail management. So, all these are core activities in a supply chain. And then there are support activities like finance, marketing and sales, customer services. These are the support activities. However, all stages may not present in all supply chains. For instance, no retailer or distributor for Dell. Now, as I said, there is a general structure of a supply chain, that there is a certain supplier, then comes the manufacturer, then the wholesaler, distributor, retailer, and then the end customer. Now, this is a general structure. But in certain products, there can be some customization. Like, for example, Dell has a supply chain where there is no retailer and distributor. So, what happens in this case? Right. So, what I want to say here, what I want to say is that now, in case of Dell, you as an individual, you can get in touch with the company directly. So, you call up Dell and you explain what you need. So, which is called as customization. So a computer set or a laptop set which is not available in market, you want to do some sort of customization, you want to play with the technical part of the Dell. So you directly get in touch with Dell. Dell, the company, will directly get in touch with you. The company will deal with you. There will be no middleman in, right? So for example, there will be no retailer, wholesaler, and distributor in between. It is just between you as an individual and Dell as a company. Now, we call it B2C, business to customer. Now, in this case, a certain business is directly communicating to a customer. So, there is a business of Dell and you as a customer. So, that is why we call it B2C. Okay. Now, you see, again, this is a general structure of a supply chain. and I have named it flows in supply chain. So why flows in supply chain? What are flows in supply chain? I will explain. Now again, let me recall. Now here you can see a supply chain structure is there, right? So a vendor or a supplier, the sourcing operation happens through inbound logistics, manufacturing is happening, and through outbound, the final product is made available to the customer. Now there are three different type of flows in this entire supply chain, right? First and foremost is material flow. So certainly we know that certain raw material is flowing from the supplier or from the vendor's end to the manufacturer. And this leg between vendor and the manufacturer is called as inbound logistics. Now the raw material is flowing from vendor to the manufacturer, right? That is why the arrow is towards forward direction, right? Because certain material is flowing from the leftmost part to the rightmost part. That is why it is a forward flow, right? Because certainly nothing flows, from the trader or wholesaler to the manufacturer. Everything flows in the forward direction, right? So from vendor to the manufacturer, raw material flows, and from the manufacturer to the end customer or consumer, final product flows. So that is why material flow is always in the forward direction. Similarly, information flows. So information along with material, information flows in both ways. Now, in the forward ways, for example, if you're buying something from a supplier or from a farmer, the material will flow in the forward direction to you as a manufacturer, right? So the material is flowing towards you, right? But along with material, some information is also flowing. Some documents are also flowing about the quality, quantity, price, and so on. So all this information is also flowing in the forward direction, right? Similarly, when you manufacture the final product and it flows towards consumer, again, some information also flows, right? Now, this information is all about weight, price, right? Uh, Different approvals that you take for a certain product. So everything flows along with the material. Now, similarly, what flows backward? Again, the information also flows backward. So forward and backward both. Now, you give some feedback to the manufacturer. Now, that's an information, right? The requirement which manufacturer communicates to the farmer or to the vendor or to the middleman, it also flows backward, right? So information flows both ways. It is a forward flow as well as a backward flow. Money. So since you are buying a product, you are paying money to the retailer. The retailer buying the material, or the retailer is buying final products from wholesaler or traders. So again, if the retailer is buying material, it is paying some amount. So again, is money flowing the backward, right? Similarly, the wholesaler is buying from the manufacturer. So again, it is flowing backward. The manufacturer is buying from the middleman. Again, the money is flowing towards back direction. The middleman is buying from the farmer, which is the origin, which is the starting point of a supply chain. So again, money is flowing backwards. So this way, these are the three flows uh, which exist in a supply chain. One, material flow, which is always forward; information, which is both ways, right? And money, which is backward. Now, the objective of supply chain. What exactly is the objective of supply chain? So the objective of a supply chain is to efficiently deliver products to customers at the right time and at the lowest cost, while maximizing value across all partners involved. So the basic objective of a supply chain is to make the product available to the customer or consumer. That is the ultimate aim. At the right price, right time, okay? And also, it also aims to maximize value across all the stakeholders, including the buyers as well. Supply chain surplus, as you can see over here, right? The supply chain surplus is the total value created by the supply chain minus costs incurred in its operations. It can be calculated as supply chain surplus is equal to customer value minus supply chain cost. This surplus represents the benefit or profit generated for all players in a supply chain, including suppliers, manufacturers, and distributors. The goal is to maximize this surplus through improved efficiency and collaboration among all parties. Now, I have taken one example over here. For instance, a customer purchases a laptop from Amazon.in for 60,000 rupees. Right now, you pay 60,000 rupees to Amazon.in. Now, this 60,000 rupees is a revenue which is generated by the seller. Now, let the supply chain incurs costs related to information storage, transportation, components, assembly, etc. Now, these are broad costs that the seller will incur in this entire operation, right? The difference between 60,000 and the sum of all these costs, let's consider 45,000. Now, let's suppose uh, right from information, storage, transportation, components, assembly, manufacturing, everything, right from human resource, everything, the entire cost incurs 45,000 rupees for a certain laptop set, which is sold in 60,000 rupees. The cost is the actual manufacturing and every entire cost is 45,000 rupees. Now, in this case, the supply chain profit would be you simply minus, you deduct 45,000 rupees from 60,000 rupees. So 15,000 is the profit here. Now, this 15,000 will be shared by the stakeholders in the supply chain, right? So majorly it will be shared by the manufacturer, right? And then other chunk of the profit will be shared by, some part of it will be shared by Amazon, some by, distributors, transporters, and so on. And let me explain you once again that customer is the only source of revenue. Now, for a supply chain, customer is the only source of revenue. Let me again repeat, supply chain exists because there is a customer. If there is no customer, there will be no supply chain. Effective supply chain management is the management of flows between and among supply chain stages to maximize total supply chain surplus. Right. So an effective supply chain management is the one, I would say, when you make the product available to the customer at the right time, okay, at a right price, right? Because there is a competition nowadays, right? So if you are effectively making a product available to the customer will definitely go for your services rather than XYZ company, right? So that is why it becomes really important that at what price and what time you are making the product available to the customer. Decision phases in supply chain. So there are 3 decision phases which I would like to cover in my next lecture. I hope you enjoyed it. I am open for your feedback. Thank you. Thanks.